I guess we'll get rolling. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the October 11th edition of the Best Working Group. Do we have anyone here that is interested in helping us take notes and scribe today, please? Please.
I will try to help you.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, everybody. That was much appreciated. Do we have any new friends to the group that wanted to introduce themselves? All right. If you have any opens, please note those down in the open section of the agenda. And that would be items that aren't currently on the agenda that you're interested in having the group talk about. We probably are going to have a guest speaker today to come talk about GitHub best practices project that they've been asking me to come talk to the group about. So if Roy and Noam arrive, we will pause and let them talk to us. But let us jump into our inaugural backlog review. I know everyone's been chomping at the bit, very excited to talk about items in our backlog. Dan, do you want to kind of, I know you had done.
Before we do that, can you just, you mentioned an email that was sent to, I guess, is it an education specific mailing list?
Yes.
Because I don't have that and I'm not subscribed to that, although I think I'm participating in that group.
Oh,
and I
you should subscribe.
I know. Can you send just a link to the archive of the particular email that you're talking about so that I can distribute it internally?
I will do my best. And to that particular item, Bellendorf was looking for some voices from the foundation, but if your individual organizations are also sharing by yourselves, that's also really cool. And I will track that particular email down in a bit.
I can do that in the back for you.
Oh, thank you, Arno. I really appreciate that.
So regarding the backlog, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 patients in the backlog. Some of them, so just in my triage, some of them look like they could be immediately closed because they're pretty old, and they probably have been. I summarily closed one thing that obviously was taken care of and just was able to be closed, and that was what did I close? Oh, this would make a great blog post. It was about the concise guides. Well, there was a blog post on the concise guides, so that's done, right? Clearly, but there are a couple of things, and I went through and I used some of these labels. I marked things that so maybe we could take a look at things that I marked as next meeting first, but we should really take a look maybe at a couple of the other things. So issue number 9, this was somebody commented that they thought that our best practices should include guiding people to use memory safe languages like Rust, and I couldn't find any specific mention of memory safe languages in our best practices, but maybe I wasn't looking hard enough. So it didn't look like this was incorporated, but my question is it appropriate? Because it's kind of an opinionated, it felt like to me that the guides that we're building here should be more neutral when it comes to language use. And so I thought it might be out of scope. So I just, rather than close it, I just wanted to bring it to the group and see if it was out of scope. I don't know I don't want to debate it here, but if I can close it, or if we can agree to close it, then let's close it. But if not, then let's by all means talk about in the issue what we could do with regard to memory safe languages, or what we should recommend with regard to memory set languages. So your thoughts?
So I think let's give the group until Friday to post comments for or against, working on this or citing examples. And if we don't get anything, driving us forward to take specific actions on this, let's close it. And I'll take a note, Dave, if you could make a note that I need to send an email out to the list asking them to review and comment on this by Friday, please.
Okay.
Should be easy enough. And we can add, and that'll give David Wheeler a chance to weigh in since he has written the course material. I don't know what he's.
I think
Look
it's
at that.
also
It's like Beetlejuice. You say his name and he appears. So
Is that me? Are you talking about me?
I am.
All
So,
right. Beetlejuice.
We are talking about the developer best practices issue number 9, David. Somebody had made a note that we should advocate or create materials or do some work around memory safety languages.
Like Rust.
Like Rust. And we're going to ask the group, send an email out today asking everyone to comment on issue number 9, give your opinion on, is this something we want to do, something we already did, or is this something that is kind of out of scope? Because Dan mentioned that we do try to be neutral as for all developers.
Right.
So is that something
we
want to pursue?
Yeah, I guess the question is in what? Are we talking about, like, for the concise guide, for the badge, for the course actually already recommends it in many cases where it makes sense. The challenge is, of course, that there's many cases where it doesn't make sense. So, a modern memory set, pretty much all languages except for C, C++, Forth, assembly. I mean, most languages are memory safe. What was that sound for?
Except C and C++, which is a lot of code.
Which is a lot of code. I mean, I will observe. Yeah, I mean, one of the practice should be. I mean, look at all the efforts. The Linux kernel is about to add support for Rust. It has been a lot of work, and there is no expectation that that's going to be used for a large proportion of the kernel. They're hoping to eventually use it for certain drivers. It is driving changes to the Rust, to the primary Rust implementation. They're having, as a lot of Rust programs do, they're having to use a lot of unstable features. It's so
yeah, I mean, I guess the question is then, like that we probably should bring to the issue is, should we have recommendations in things like the concise guide or any of the other like guideline documents besides the educational materials that you mentioned?
Right.
So,
and I'll get that out to the group, and please weigh your opinion on issue number 9 before the end of the week.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think we have to be cautious. I think encouraging for new code where it makes sense is reasonable. There's a whole lot of existing code. You got to spare $1 billion of effort. Excellent. Let's start rewriting the Linux kernel. That was the. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Linux last numbers I saw, it's over $1 billion to rewrite the Linux kernel. They're not going to do it. And what's more, Rust, I don't know of any language that's memory safe. I guess maybe Ada, maybe for
Carbon, the new one by Google.
Yeah, no. I'm thinking about the the typical small embedded devices, the sub 64K, often the sub 8K devices. You can't get a Rust runtime in the space available. So whereas so there's areas where this, I think, encouraging is sensible. As I said, our educational materials already do that. At least the Well, at least the the tutorial. I don't know about SKF. Is
Ricardo's
here?
on.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Did you say anything
Present.
about it? Does not. Okay. I mean, you only focus on memory safe languages anyway, but
Yeah, for now we do indeed. But we can
Right.
change that over time. But what we figured out is what we have right now is already maybe a little bit more bitten off than we can chew.
okay. So you're not rushing. Well, and I understand. I mean, it's fundamentally an OWASP task, and OWASP, you're quite unlikely to write a web app in C or C++. I won't tell you it can't be done. I'm sure someone has, but it's a less common situation. Whereas embedded, that's the world.
Hmm.
I don't even, there's a lot of there's a lot of platforms where there are no other compilers available. That's it.
Mhm.
Thank you for the comments. I'm going to turn it back over to Dan. And please,
Yeah,
let's get
just
this into the issue.
point
Please.
of order, just, not seeking to kind of like, just a suggestion. I think in the context of issue triage, we should try and keep discussion short and move the debate to the issue. But what I'm trying to do is determine if there are a couple of these that can just be summarily closed. Like, for instance, issue 38, proposed high-level vulnerability workflow. There was a PR into the working group vulnerability disclosures work that's referenced from this issue number 38. And so my question is, can we just close this issue based on the fact that there was a PR that addressed this?
I believe so. Does anyone have any counter opinions? I hear no dissent, so I believe we've made progress.
All right, I'm closing it. Boom. All right. The other thing that I saw, which looked like it could be closed, is best practices in the badges. This is number 18. So it's raised by David Wheeler. Best practices badge, improved mechanisms to see badges, and it looked to me like this conversation was closed off, but I just, rather than summarily closing it, I just wanted to make sure that that was the case, that we had closed the issue.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Progress.
Okay, great. We're making progress. What else have we got here? So there are a couple of things that I've marked as admin. There's one other thing that I marked as next meeting. All right, let me just see if there are other things that I said, can we close them?
Looks like
Oh, yeah. Okay, this is
CodeQL
issue number 51, actually.
Dan,
Sorry.
just a point of order. I mean, it would have been nice, I think, to put a comment in when you close it to say, this was agreed upon at this meeting, but you can do that later, I suppose.
Thank you, Arno. That's a good idea.
That is a very good point. And I should have done that. Yes.
Was there any other issue you wanted to highlight for us today, Dan?
Yeah. Sorry, issue number 51. It has to do with adding security of machine learning systems to guidelines. So there was some discussion on this. This goes back to March. So there doesn't seem to have been any action that came out of this into the guidelines that I've seen. And so my question is this something that is kind of tapered off? Do we still think this is desirable? Should we close this off or keep discussing whether or not machine learning specific security guidelines should be incorporated into things? And if so, what things?
David, I know we had talked about the foundation spinning up a AI machine learning effort somewhere. Have you heard anything, any movement on around that?
There is already a foundation on AI. I mean, that's not this one, but
Correct.
now they ended up merging it with big data because a lot of the machine learning stuff today, basically, you have massive data sets for training. So give me a second. I will get its actual name because I keep getting it wrong. Artificial.
So do we
Intelligence.
feel as a group this is something we want to tackle, something we would like to defer, or something we need to try to go find an owner for?
Link in the chat.
Yeah, there has not been any action on this for many months. Oh, look at that. NIST has something. So what does the group feel?
I feel this is out of our scope.
Any other thoughts on it?
I suppose we
Okay,
could add a reference to the NIST document if there is one.
Yeah. Now wait a minute. This is number 51 that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Here?
Yes, sir. You and Ava
Yeah,
were
okay.
talking through it.
Yeah. Okay. I think there's two different issues. One is machine learning systems in general, totally out of scope. Security of machine learning systems, I think, are plausibly in scope, and I listed the three major areas, which is evasion, poisoning, and losing confidentiality. I guess I would say this is in scope, but maybe what this does is this ends up being a mod to some existing training materials and maybe the concise guide if that happens enough. I think the challenge is that for the concise guide, most people are building software aren't building machine learning systems. So, and obviously this only applies there. On the other hand, it is a significant number, and I'm sure that number will increase.
So let's leave it open and try and generate some discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. I can just leave a note here saying, we discussed.
Yeah. I will comment, and you can if you read the details of the comments, I realize it's a lot of text. The big challenge is evasion. Basically, there's widespread agreement that there's a problem that I know of no solutions. So, hey, be aware of a problem, but there are no solutions. I guess that's useful in the sense of maybe you shouldn't use machine learning for that problem, but
A alternate proposal could be, if we feel strongly enough about this, maybe this becomes something for the backlog of the education SIG that we develop some piece of training for. Whether it's a webinar, we add it to existing or future training. Would that be a path to route this to?
And also maybe cross working groups. This is also something which may interest other working groups, for instance, the tooling ones, right? To understand if this should be in their scope as well.
you know what? How's this? I would propose both of those. Basically, let's at least add to education for the things that are available, and maybe ping off to the LF Foundation to see if there's a solution for evasion. Because I actually did. I mean, I spent weeks looking at all the research on the evasion topic, and basically, there's an incredible number of papers that describe an idea that doesn't work. It's the academics are incentivized to write papers, not to make something that works, and there is a difference in this area. Yeah, you prove me wrong.
All right. So I made a note about that in that issue. The one other thing that I put into the agenda was issue 28, which is code QL and SKF, which looked like there had been some recent discussion on it. So I just wanted to kind of raise that to the agenda to see if there was anything that we could talk about here.
Yeah, this is a very odd issue that we discussed last week with Ricardo, and we decided to work on something tangential. So I think we will certainly update the issue, change the title, and then explore what we were discussing in the last comment about that.
Awesome. Cool. Any other additional thoughts or comments? Dan, anything else you wanted to talk about today?
If anybody is, I mean, again, I'm just kind of like approached the labeling thing in a way that was consistent with our discussion in the discussion thread about this. And if people have different ideas about labels, or I think the idea is to be quite promiscuous with labels, so to speak, right? So if people want to add a label, they think a label's missing, I think, let's err on the side of adding labels, which helps us to organize things. And then I'll try to do the same, kind of go through the same thing, and hopefully a little bit more streamlined for the next call.
I think.
By the way, thank you very much, Dan, for the great feedback and for actually making it happen. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think this is a great first step, and I really appreciate the efforts. And then I see I have homework to do. That's what we're whittling the backlog down to. All right. Did Roy or Noam ever join us? They did not. All right. Our next agenda item was homework everybody had from last time. We are trying to think about the next projects we would like to work on together as a group. As we determine these things, determine kind of our next projects, or even to start to even generate ideas, I'd like to get these things documented as issues so that we can, again, publicly work them and talk about them. And then eventually, as we are engaged in projects, have them as links inside our agenda to show, we're talking about issue blah, and here's the progress we made since the last time we talked about it. So I'll open up the floor. What types of things is the group interested in collaborating on together around the topic of secure development practices?
Is it a good opportunity to mention that the discussion that we're having about the idea of a web developer specific thing?
Absolutely.
Right.
That would make a fantastic issue.
Okay. So in Dublin, I buttonholed Rob and I and some other folks, and about the idea of doing like potentially a collaboration between OpenSSF and W3C around web developer education. So we have a kickoff workshop, or not workshop, a kickoff call this week with some folks to talk about that idea with W3C people involved. Jory is hopefully going to be there. Arnaud indicated he'd like to be part of it. Myself and Crow. And the initial idea is that this might turn into a industry workshop that we would run, like a physical workshop where we would run it in sometime in the early new year, where we would focus on developer materials or anything that really helps web developers develop more secure web applications. Kind of looking at it through the web developer lens. And that is so that's one potential item, and then out of that could come additional deliverables, either joint deliverables or deliverables for this working group.
What does the group think about that idea? Is that something you'd be interested in contributing or collaborating on? Thank you, Randall. I personally think it's a pretty worthwhile topic, which is why I'm participating. But if anyone else has additional thoughts, or they are interested, or they have ideas that the group could potentially work on, please feel free to suggest them. And we'll actually make a formal issue for this going forward. Again, please put your thoughts and comments there as well, in addition to meeting notes, chat, however else you wish to express yourself.
I don't know if this is the right forum, but do you mind if I raise a thought anyway?
Please.
Maybe this is more education sig, but the current fundamentals course talks a whole lot about developing secure software and evaluating software, before you bring it in, or reusable software before you bring it in. It talks less about the whole securing of the build and distribution and so on. There is a section on it. I have definitely thought about the idea of expanding that section based on Salsa and SSC and so on. Not really to be its own course, just expanding on that so that we cover that more thoroughly. I don't know where. Underneath this group somewhere, and this is an idea not yet put into practice, but that's something that I think would be useful, valuable going forward.
So, fun fact, as the education SIG rolls around and we actually start to get a handle on content,
right,
that SIG is going to be coming to this group for assistance in contributing materials like some secure supply chain training. And I agree. I think this is important. I think there's a lot of interest and energy around this. And maybe this is something we kind of kickstart to get a little bit of ahead of the curve, because I think this is probably one of the priority areas we're going to identify out of the education SIG, that wherever we have kind of a gap in current materials.
Right.
So I plus one in.
Yeah, and I don't think we need to necessarily kick off a whole new course, although obviously
like a module or something.
Exactly. A module within an existing course. You can obviously drill down in depth, but I think at least what I had in mind, at least to start with, is a smaller module within something, so that developers at least know the basics.
Any additional thoughts on secure supply chain training?
I think this is an interesting idea, and in a way, it could also help put the different pieces of OpenSSF together, right, in some kind of big picture, which is badly lacking right now, as we all know.
Yeah. David Russo.
Thank you. I agree. This is a good idea. This is a topic I think needs some more specific attention and guidance. So I definitely agree. I also wanted to interject a point of admin here. These ideas need to be created into issues. So I'm going to assign issue creation to people in this document. Dan, is it safe to put you down for the web developer education issue? Thank you. David, can I put you down for the idea you just pitched?
Yeah, yes, but when you say put me down, you just want me to create an issue, right?
Just
Is
create
that what
the
you
issue.
mean? Okay,
That's
right.
all I'm
I know how-
asking.
I know how to. I know how to do that.
Okay, yes.
The problem with
Thank you.
creating issues is sometimes they get self-assigned. That's the big failure.
I completely sympathize that you're 100% right.
Michelle has a comment for us.
Yes, I was just going to mention that the CDF Foundation will have a new project to address security supply chain. So maybe we can invite them, the new project that it's going to be, so they can provide us a quick introduction to the project, what it is, what are their expectations, and maybe we can think about what to do in that regard.
I think that's an excellent suggestion. Any other thoughts on that? Could we possibly, are you connected to that group at all?
Yes, I'm part.
Could you
So-
maybe ask them maybe to come
Yes,
to
yes, yes.
future,
I can make the
Tuesday call?
introduction and invite them for the next session, and I will put it in the agenda for the next session, a brief, very brief talk. Or
Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Christine.
Yeah, so it was interesting that you kind of brought up the web developer. Is there also like a goal to think about other types of developers and do best practices for those types of groups as well?
That is certainly an option if we think there's enough specificity in a particular, focus of development. I have no boggle with having tailored materials.
Okay.
And just web, we talk about a lot. I think we have a lot of people that have familiarity with web development. So I think it's a simple topic to start with.
Yeah, embedded, cloud native are two other obvious areas.
Yeah.
There's others too, but that's.
Yeah, I think what's true about many of these ecosystems, these communities, is that they all have their own language, so to speak, not programming language, but the way that they talk about development is different, and the words that they use are different. And one of the reasons that because I'm kind of coming from the web side, so one of the reasons that I was focusing on web is because I see there being a huge gap when it comes to web developers, how they talk and think about security compared to how this group talks and thinks about security. And I'd like to try and narrow that gap. I think there could definitely be similar opportunities with other communities. Embedded is definitely one of those, like the whole Internet of Things space.
Yeah.
Securing your doorbell.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because like Dan, I also kind of come more from like a front end web development, but I do recognize from listening to some talks about like IoT and embedded and some of the challenges there, but I don't speak that language as well.
Well, we're lucky that Marta participates with this group, and she has a lot of experience with embedded. So that's potentially an inroad that we can get some materials or connections with, like in the embedded space. I think that's an excellent idea, kind of thinking about other constituents we may need to adjust our materials for or create whole cloth new materials for potentially.
So do we suggest creating one catch-all suggestion issue for non-web, or do we suggest creating specific issues for certain types that we've identified?
I think to be better in terms of actionability. I don't even know if that's a word. it should be specific.
So it
And
looks like
maybe-
we need two
Yeah,
issues.
maybe-
I'm sorry, Christine, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just saying, maybe the action item is just to try to get a list of what the different types of specific ones would be, and then kind of go from there.
And one thing we'll need to be cognizant of is as we identify the need, we'll need to also try to identify, do we have someone that has subject matter expertise or someone that has the ability to engage with those particular constituents? It's great to find a backlog of work, but if we don't have the capability or capacity to do anything about it, isn't super helpful.
I think having a partner or a partner organization or something like that, somebody to collaborate with as well, because that helps to enlarge, because if it's just us talking about embedded, then that's one thing. But if we're actually like working with some embedded systems specific community together, then that helps to amplify the voice of OpenSSF, so to speak, and raise the profile and therefore help to achieve our goals.
Excellent point, Dan. And I would show you an example where we had several members of this group were very passionate about creating an NPM series of best practices. So Laurent and several others went off and worked with that community to create that guide in collaboration with them. And it's been, gotten some very good comments and remarks so far. And that's, I think, an excellent path to find somebody to partner with and kind of work with directly with those communities.
So did someone volunteer to lead the action to put that list together?
This is just like a list of the different types of so-called, yeah, I can take a shot at it.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you. Any additional ideas of things we'd like to work on together? It's a good list so far. I guess I would put in a question to the group. We have a couple guides we've produced. What is our desire to keep those guides maintained? Do we want to put an item that we annually, semi-annually review them officially, or do we want other suggestions on how we can make sure that those artifacts we create are current and have, continue to have accurate information?
I have a druthers, and this group can decide whether or not that makes any sense. But I sure would hate to wait for an annual review of something when, hey, it's a relatively minor change. It can just be like the concise guides. They're lists. We can always add another item to a list of things to think about. So for example, we just had a discussion about memory safety. Let me use that as an example. I'm not trying to go that, but just using an example. I would say, hey, somebody has wants to make a change, make a pull request. Maybe we review in this group. If it's not, hey, rewrite the universe, and people agree to it, that's great. And then periodically review on annual, hey, is this still reasonably good, or has this kind of gotten too old and really needs a refresh or redo? But I'd hate to wait a whole year for guidance. Now, for something that likes a standard where, there's multiple parties and maybe contracts involved, I think that's different. But I don't think most of the stuff we're doing is in that category.
So I would highlight that everything we create is essentially a living document and always is open for improvement and contribution. But much like our backlog, if someone isn't looking at it and remembering to try to follow up on it, it might get stale. So I just want to make sure that maybe on some level we as a group reflect on it, But yeah, always, if there's, we always encourage things to be actively updated. Dan.
Related question, if somebody comes across our, or when somebody comes across our our concise guide, say, for instance, do they know, oh, if they have a suggestion, do they know that that they're welcome to open up an issue in our repo? Are they welcome to open up an issue in our repo? Because that's another way that we can keep those documents fresh, by encouraging external contributors or external commenters anyway. And I'm not sure that that's the case right now.
Historically speaking, as the guy that's had to push the PRs, we do have some people drive-bys that do contributions. Like we just last week had somebody came through and fixed a bunch of typos. Yay. But I don't know that we are actively advertising that we, patches are always welcome, even though we espouse it here in the calls.
Yeah. I mean, we could add like to the bottom of the 2 concise guides, just to make it, for instance, of, hey, suggestions welcome. I don't know about the fundamentals course, but we can certainly do this. We can at least add to some of these materials, hey, proposals welcome.
Should we have a contributing markdown on the OSSF's repositories?
Contributing markdown. I don't know what you mean, sir.
I can help. Just to add a second voice, that was exactly what I was curious about too. So any repo that you're accepting PRs on, you should have a contributing.md. It's actually one of the base standards for CLO monitor that you are just specifying what it looks like for people to contribute. It should have all that information in there.
I thought we had one.
Thanks.
Sounds like we don't. Sounds like that is a problem that needs to get fixed relatively quickly.
Well, the good news is that we have total control over that.
Scorecard has
creating an issue now on that particular thing.
Thank you, Dan.
We have a code of conduct, but not a contributing.md, but that can be fixed.
So who said
awesome.
that Dave, did you say you were going to do that? Who said that they were going to do that?
I'm sure that was Crow.
Damn it. Yeah, give that to me. And I actually have a bunch of repos I have to go add that to. Thank you, Eddie. Appreciate the example.
Oh, that's okay. So you've got an actual example.
Excellent suggestion. We need to implement that.
Yeah, although you don't have anything to build. I mean, it's literally just, file pull requests, please, or file issues or pull requests.
We'll make sure that we are explicit. We are welcoming, contributions.
Yeah, and if there is, do we have any markdown linting? Or I guess I don't think we do.
Our friend Randall, I thought, was going to get that set up. I don't know.
Yeah,
if
I'll do that this week. I made a note of it to get it done this week.
Okay, if you can do that, then we can tell people to follow the rules of that linter.
I was gonna implement Markdown lint in just the standard rules for now.
Okay, that seems reasonable enough. I actually know how to use that. So, and I think that's consistent. I mean, that just at least eliminates some of the craziness.
Yep. So I'll implement it, and I will. Do you want me to implement it and lint whatever we have in there in the same PR, or would you like me to lint that in a separate PR?
Separate, please.
You got it.
If I recall correctly, Markdown lint's style for headers is use either one but be consistent. Am I remembering it correctly?
I believe so.
Oh, look at that. We already have an issue that Randall owns, number 74. I'm going to need an update on that issue there, Randall. gonna sick my scope cop on you.
So I think adding a contributing MD file is definitely a thing to do. This is definitely a best practice, but I don't know that this means we don't also want to add a note to the documents themselves, right? And I think, in fact, I mean, we probably want to direct people on, you know, people may have just questions or raise issues, right? And they may not necessarily come up with a proposal, and maybe you don't want them to just start submitting a pull request even before you entertain whether this is a good idea we want to welcome or not, you know. And just like the issue we talked about earlier with the language about Rust, do we want to recommend something like Rust and stuff like this? I think it's better to have an issue open than having a pull request that just modifies the text saying, hey, you really need to use Rust all the time as much as possible. You know, so I think a little bit of instructions added to the document in this regard is probably a good thing. If we don't want to put too much, we could point to the contributing MD file and go a bit more into the details there. But
If I could push back a little bit, I do think there's cases where you can do the pull request. I think a number of cases it's perfectly reasonable to do a pull request directly. If there's a problem but you have no idea exactly, if you perceive a potential problem but it's not clear exactly what the problem is or how to solve it, then issues are a good way to go. But just, you know, I would say whoever's proposing the pull request or issue gets to decide. And, you know, if they know specifically what they think should be added there, sure, make a proposal as a pull request. Randall?
I had a quick trivial question. Can I also make a PR for a get ignore? Because we got a DS store file in our repo, which is a Mac only Finder file. Considering
That's probably my fault.
It's all good.
Yep.
It happens. It happens.
Absolutely. I do request make that a separate pull request, because if we make them as separate, then we can merge one. If there's a problem with something, we can merge one, not the other, and not slow up anything else.
Okay, and another question I had is that we forked this repo from the template. Shouldn't contributing, well, I guess contributing would be separate for every group, but maybe like the get ignore maybe should be like for system files like that, should maybe be in the template.
Maybe, although we use the template's only used when we create a new working group, which is incredibly rare. So probably true, probably not pressing.
All right, just making sure.
Well, and I would, it's a little more frequent than that, David, because it's not just working groups. It's the same template for SIGs and SIFs.
Oh, it is. Oh,
yeah,
I take it back.
They didn't make any change. Khalil didn't make a change. He just copied it when we did this. The two SIGs were affiliated with.
Got it. Okay.
So do you want me to make
always,
a PR?
But enough.
Should I make a PR there too with the get ignore?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay, cool. Just making sure.
And I'll do, now that I have an issue, I'll make a PR with the suggested contributor MD that we can all reflect on in a future call together.
Cool.
Any additional thoughts on ideas we want to contribute on or anything we've talked about? Mr. Rousseau.
So we had two lingering threads from that last conversation. One was the question about, do we set up a cadence to formally review documents to make sure that they're getting looked at? And the second one was, are we going to add a statement to our documentation that proposals are welcome? And if we're going to do either or both of those, we need to have someone create issues for them.
Or PRs.
Or pull requests.
Or PRs.
I would suggest for the latter, yes, where it's applicable, we should have that little footer that states, you know, patches are welcome.
I made the issue 93 that I opened up for the contributing.md and assigned to C-Rob is also says add suggestions, welcome to concise guides. So it's two issues in one.
I guess I get to own that. So I'll figure out some words and propose it for everybody. That's not a problem.
But yeah, I
So what
agree.
about-
Having a cadence to review sounds like a good idea too.
So would just a twice a year agenda item that states, let's quickly give homework that everyone reviews the docs for freshness, but all, and again, with the eye that we always want contributions, and these are evergreen living docs.
Yeah,
That
I
seems
think
fair.
you can even get away with it every year.
Annual?
Annual, yeah, because as long as people are occasionally doing that, and if they're not, then either there's nothing particularly new to add, that's fine, or it's gotten stale, but it won't be obvious in only 6 months anyway, I don't think.
That's fair. So yes,
Crowell, I'll assign that to you
yes.
as the owner of the agenda.
Get out of that job.
It's the penalty for doing too well.
Tell ya. All right, group. Anything else we would like to discuss? I will thank everyone for your contributions today. Very productive call. Thanks to Dan for being our issue warden and kind of getting us set on the right path for managing ourselves. David, if you have 1 second, I wanted to talk to you about Bellendorf's email from this morning.
Okay, I haven't.
And then everybody else, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for attending. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
day.
Did you see the note that Brian sent out to the education SIG about the response to the Office of the Cyber Director?
This is from when did you send it?
This morning.